Okay, here we are again with the astropsychology of the guru. Now, guru actually means from dark to light. So it's a figure who brings people out of the darkness of ignorance into the light of knowledge, or in the case of the Dalai Lama, compassion. He was chosen as the current Dalai Lama precisely because of his astrological chart. And so they kind of cherry picked him and said, "You are the 14th Dalai Lama." So as a child, he was just basically identified as the next Dalai Lama, which is very interesting. So in a way, his whole life was completely prescripted and predestined, mainly because of his astrology. And he was basically thrown out into the world to be this beacon of compassion, the Buddha of compassion. And so throughout his whole life, he has played this role of a compassionate, nonviolent leader in Tibet. And so I give the ball to you, Georgios, to talk about the initial interesting aspects you see on his chart.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. So it is interesting, this chart indeed. And I'm not sure how much the chart really was important, but it was probably pretty important. And I wonder, because he is a sun and ascendant in Cancer, like I'm a sun ascendant in Cancer, but his moon is in Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
So that is good in that sense, because it's like very spiritual placements, very feminine. And then his midheaven is in Pisces, which of course is also very good for this kind of position, because Pisces is about being very spiritual, being very into exploring that in your subconscious mind, in your spiritual matters, in your faith, beliefs, in all this monk stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the midheaven. The midheaven is about his professional life. And he has Saturn conjunction midheaven. And we also see that a lot with spiritual leaders, with people who are teaching some kind of doctrine. Especially in his case, it's in the 9th house, which is the house of journeys, faith, the house of where you expand your mind.
Mm.
So there's a lot in his chart already from the get-go, suggesting this just on first look without even looking at the aspects.
Mm-hmm.
But then you do look at some aspects. And that's what I find so interesting, is because his moon is conjunction Neptune, which again makes a person very, very sensitive, especially with a Cancer ascendant, because the moon is his chart ruler. So that means that his whole chart gets affected very strongly by this Neptune. So this is really his personality. So, you know, there are some gurus, some people, they play the spiritual person. Like they play the monk, they play the priest.
Mm-hmm.
They play the devoted, the worker, the selfless, the altruist. But in this case, the chart actually shows that person is actually really that monk, that priest. Like it's real, it's not fake in this case.
Yeah.
That helps.
Mm.
And
So
whether
he's
you
a
like
bit,
the man or not, doesn't matter. It's just the chart shows this is his inner world. And he actually believes some of what he's saying, if not most of it, really.
yeah. So there's a congruency between his inner world and outer world. What he
Maybe
presents
that's
to
why
the
they
world.
chose him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's consistent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And
So yeah.
his Lilith is also conjunction his moon.
Okay.
Now that's very interesting because his Lilith is in 9 degrees in Virgo, and his moon is in 9 degrees in Virgo as well. It's in the same degree. And you know how Lilith is called the dark side of the moon. And here it conjuncts the moon. And this is interesting because normally when we think of Lilith, we think of rejection, like where I reject myself. So I reject how I feel, and that's not so important anymore. And again, like I said before, the moon is his chart ruler with Cancer ascendant. So everything he does, there's the split between his actual personality and how he feels. And there's this sense of obligation, like, okay, I just need to do this. Again, this is also where Neptune plays the role of I need to sacrifice myself to play this role.
Right.
This is what I want to do. And it's very similar. We've seen this before, actually. We've seen this before with Yuji in our last video.
With Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Right, Jiddu. Yeah. Sorry, not
okay. So there's a correlation there.
There's an overlap. This Neptunian flavor, I call it. The martyr, the do-gooder, the altruist, the very sensitive guy, the very compassionate person, which is good. It's in the chart, so it's not fake, thank God. So if it was not in the chart, but they tell you they are that, then I would be like, maybe they are faking it. But he's not.
So, like, in terms of like the whole theme of compassion throughout his life, I think he did an interview once, and he where he killed a mosquito, and I don't know, some people might say, oh, well, if he's so compassionate, then why did he kill a mosquito? But you know. Yeah, and then also controversially, he took the COVID vaccine, which really, I don't know, ethically, it just made no sense.
It puts him in a certain position.
Yeah, it just made no sense that he did that. If he is truly, if he has like, you know, you can have compassion, but it doesn't mean you have integrity, right?
That's the thing with Neptune.
Yeah.
Person may be very sensitive,
yeah,
very aware of other people and their feelings and his own feelings. But there's the shadow side of Neptune, which is manipulation and deception.
Right.
He might not fake being a Neptunian type, but he may not be honest about what he's actually thinking and feeling still.
Right, yeah. Is there anything in his chart that indicates that there might be some hypocrisy that goes against?
It's in the third house. What we talk about,
yeah.
Neptune, Moon, Lilith, and Venus are in the third house of communication.
Right. Yeah.
Because the house of communication, basically what you're saying to other people. And this guy said that he didn't have a childhood. He was told how to behave, what to say. Obviously, there are, no matter what kind of spiritual role you play, there are always the vultures gathering around you.
Yeah.
They need you to play that role so they can have their benefits from that. And of course, it's easy to manipulate a child.
Yeah, I mean, he was completely groomed and molded into this role, basically. And this is shown if you watch Martin Scorsese's Kundun from 1997. It's a film about his ascent to being this leader, a spiritual leader in Tibet. So the film charts his childhood growing up and how, as you say, the vultures were around him, kind of like grooming him and molding him into, the later Dalai Lama. and then he goes into, there's a huge conflict between him and Mao Zedong, because China is trying to invade Tibet, um, and what the film shows is that the Dalai Lama is very kind of diplomatic and almost a bit passive when it comes to this very aggressive Chinese invasion, you know,
Yeah.
and so I'm just wondering if in the play of his life, if there's like any malefic planets that would have kind of
He's very feminized, this chart.
right.
So when I say feminized, I don't mean, oh, feminine and that's bad.
Yeah.
I mean feminized in feminine to a malignant degree.
Yeah.
So it's like divine feminine would be like we said before, compassionate,
Yeah.
aware, nurturing, caring. But then there's a malignant feminine, which is like overgiving, overly selfless, not at all concerned with self, being like the smarter figure, and just giving one cheek and the other cheek, giving the forehead, the chin, giving everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I think what Richard Grannon calls toxic passivity.
Yeah, and his chart is very, very passive. Yeah.
The what?
It's very passive chart.
Yeah.
I mean, Cancer in itself has the shadow side of being passive.
Yeah.
But then there's Pisces midhaven, Moon in Virgo, which Virgo is not an aggressive sign, obviously. It's not about, oh, I'm going to go into action, I'm going to fight my enemies. No, Virgo is more like, I'm going to wait, I'm going to be careful, going to outsmart enemies. And with Neptune in the third house, Lilith, Venus, it's just, it's almost like this fawning, right? Like I communicate to you that I'm harmless. And then maybe you leave me alone.
Ah, right.
This is a really big theme for him, especially with this chart.
Yeah, that's a way to disarm your opponent.
He also has Gemini in the 12th house. Every Cancer ascendant has Gemini in the 12th house. Unless they're in the early degrees. And he, having that, you know, the 12th house is the house of Neptune.
Yeah.
And because Neptune is such a strong role in him, his house is also very important. And he has Mercury in Gemini and Chiron in Gemini.
Yeah.
So right away, his whole communication style is afflicted by this Neptune. He's always thinking about, oh, how are we going to look at me? How does this look on screen? Because Neptune also rules movies, performances, actors. A lot of actors have a lot of 12th house placements. And here it is important, especially because he has also Chiron there. So that means that the way he communicates is very, very critical. So as a child, he must have experienced like, oh, if I say what I think, what I believe, oops, there comes the clap. Like, okay, you are the reincarnation of Buddha.
Yeah.
But what you say is not accepted. Like, what? I thought what you say is like holy, like, oh, other people are going to listen to you now.
Yeah.
But his chart says us, no, nobody listened to this chart growing up. Everybody's like, shut up. You need to say this instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually demonstrated quite accurately in the film, Kundun, because as a boy, he's actually very, he's very his own self, kind of independent, playful. And there's a scene where all the monks are meditating and they're all like in a trance, and he's just like wide awake, and he sees this little rat like getting some cheese from the altar, and he's like giggling to himself. So he's like completely you know, as a child should be, you know, until that kind of was,
Brainwashed.
yeah, you could say, yeah.
The brainwashing is in his chart. I mean, every time we see hard aspects, like we always look at the chart as a whole, right?
Mm,
If I see Neptune in the third house of communication, where people with this Neptune, they already struggle with saying what's on their mind.
yeah.
I always feel like tiptoeing, walking on eggshells.
Hmm.
But then additionally, the Neptune ruled house
Yeah.
having Gemini about communication,
Yeah.
making this even worse. So
Mhm.
here, every time we see conjuncted aspects, different aspects in different areas that form like the pieces of a puzzle, we
Mhm.
bring them together and they enhance each other. They can either
Yeah.
make a person very, very talented, very, very skillful, because all the energy is moving towards the same thing,
Mm.
or it can make them very neurotic. So they're always thinking, always worrying about that thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what they say, genius and madness is very close related.
Yes.
So that's when we look at these placements.
No, it is, because there are a lot of mad geniuses throughout history.
And this is where the creativity comes from, right? This is
Yeah.
what we need. So maybe we can also look at it as a silver lining, that he has
Mhm.
his challenges so he can make something good out of it, turn shit into gold like an alchemist,
Mm.
or succumb to the pressure and play the role he's assigned to play.
Yeah. So in this sense, he still remains a bit of an enigma, um, as I see it, because it's like, in spite of all the congruency in his chart, I get the sense that, you know, all of his cards are not on the table, so to speak.
Definitely not. Yeah. You don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
Like you look at him, at his interviews, his outside,
Yeah.
you don't know this guy.
Yeah.
And this
Mm.
also is amplified by the first house. The
Mm.
first house, when we look at the first house, we look at how do other people look at this person?
Mhm.
What do they see first when they look?
The
And
glasses.
right, the filters of identification.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this filter, we have two planets and one asteroid. We have Sun and Pluto.
Mhm.
The Sun already in the first house is like, it's supposed to be a big identity. It's supposed to be like bigger than life. The Sun loves this house.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why you see him very, very positive appearing on the outside, very shiny,
Yeah.
almost a little bit like Leo, right?
Yeah.
You told me
Mm.
before this interview, the first guess
Yeah.
you had of
Yeah.
this chart was Leo.
Yeah. It had
This
that
because
vibe.
the sun is in the first house. That's what you see.
Ah.
Ruler of
Yeah.
Leo.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
already you can see it. But Pluto is also in the first house.
Right.
Complete opposite of Sun that hides everything, that makes it so the person feels like very, very intense, like this is pressure. This pressure either be this way or that way. And he really doesn't want to be himself with his Pluto.
Yeah.
But forces from the underworld, right? Forces of darkness are working against him to accomplish this.
Right. Mm.
And what this conjunction Pluto is Pallas.
Yeah.
So that's Athena.
Yeah. And you can remind me, what's the function of Pallas in a chart?
Pallas is about, well, they say it's about wisdom,
Yeah.
but I look at it as part of the defense system,
Okay.
as part of the body armoring, because in
Ah.
order to cope with life's
Yeah.
challenges, you
Yeah.
need strategy to
Yeah.
defend yourself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Pallas is about this strategy. And that's why
Right.
Pallas in mythology is born out of Zeus' head
Mhm.
in full body armor as a grown woman.
Yeah.
So when you're born with Pallas,
Mm.
you have this armor for life. You're already coming out of his armor. And this is also where the person specializes. Here in the first house, this person is very, very smart about their identity. They know how to construct a false identity or how to destroy it, how to expose it, and also how to defend themselves against scrutiny. So if other people want to probe against your identity, this person is very, very smart in defending themselves and keeping the shield up, like Athena's shield with a Medusa's head on the shield. And you look at the shield and you get petrified. You turn to stone. There's nothing you can do. The strategy is flawless. It's too good. You can't penetrate. And this is in conjunction with his Pluto. So that makes it armor very, very powerful, very, very shrewd, very, very smart.
Yeah. So why do you need such strong, clever armor to begin with?
That's why I said it's part of the defense system, and that's why it's part of the trauma.
Right. So do you think he carries that trauma within his own lineage?
He was pushed with blame.
Right.
Either fit in mom's perfect picture, or your identity is destroyed. You will be destroyed if you don't submit. So the role play is very good with the identity. Defense is very good with his placement.
Pushed with blame.
And it's basically here he is saying, I'm strategic about my identity and careful about how I get what I want and how other people perceive me. The animal of Pallas is the owl. Like, think of the owl. She can see in all directions. No blind spot.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, you cannot find a weakness there. It's very hard to see through them. You're just staring into the mirror. Athena's shield with Medusa.
That's interesting you say staring into the mirror, because when I was like 16 or something, I went through a Buddhist phase and felt connected to the Buddha and compassion. And then I came across the books of the Dalai Lama, which served, as a clear mirror of kind of the phase I was going through, really, So that's very interesting. And also my history teacher at school was my favorite teacher. Well, at the time, I was around 10. He was obsessed with the Dalai Lama, and he actually looked like a chubby, jolly Buddha himself. But all very interesting.
Yes.
But he has been criticized as a wolf in sheep's clothing, so maybe he does have that aspect somewhere after all.
Oh yeah. Well, we see the sheep, that's for sure. Right, we see the Neptune, the 12th house, we see the hiding, the get spanked if you are hiding yourself. But where is the wolf? Then I have to look at the malefics, Mars, Saturn. I look at the other asteroids, Pholus, Nessus. And aspects with the sun. Sun is square Mars. Position Pholus. Like sometimes you see it immediately. Like, let's say someone has like Mars conjunction Saturn, or Mars conjunction Sun, or Chiron conjunction Pluto, Lilith conjunction any of these external extroverted planets. But we don't have that. We don't have it here. There's actually a complete lack of fire in his chart. He doesn't have any fire. The only fire he has is Venus in Leo. That's all. And of course,
Interesting.
Mars and Jupiter are in the 5th house. And there's only one sign that's introverted.
Yeah.
And can become a wolf, which is Scorpio. Yes,
Well, of
Jupiter in
course,
Scorpio.
yeah. Scorpios. Ugh. Sorry if I'm offending any Scorpios watching this. But, yeah.
Well, Scorpio Jupiter means for him, he's very it gives someone knowledge of the occult. It gives someone access into the forbidden realm in everything that has to do with deception and with intrigue, manipulation, psychology. So this is good for that. And it's in the 5th house. And then I just look at aspects to the Jupiter and Scorpio.
Yeah. Well, everything you described there is you just described one of my exes who was a Scorpio. And yeah, that ticked all the boxes.
The thing is, I look at it like this. If I don't find any aspects that are malefic or anything, which I don't with this Jupiter, then I look at the ruler of the house Jupiter is in, 5th house. So the ruler is the sun. It's in the 1st house. The sun also doesn't have any aspects that say anything about being a wolf. So all I have is that because the sun is in Cancer and is very passive, if this was a wolf, it would be focused up on money mainly. It wouldn't be about destroying people or wanting to harm anyone.
Yeah, of course.
Nothing like that. The only suggestion is about money. And Cancer also is very good about money. Scorpio is good about money. And in the 5th house, it basically means that the way he gets money is through other people, through an audience, a performance. Like, let's say he makes interviews. That's a source of income. Let's say he goes out and has a concert. Let's say he was a rock star. That would be a source of income. That's all I can see in terms of being a wolf. That's the only suggestions I have with this Jupiter.
Okay. Obviously he went into exile because of the whole implacable Chinese takeover. And in fact, his autobiography is called Freedom in Exile. So he's found a way to kind of turn this oppression into, well, his own personal sense of freedom. Is there anything in the chart that demonstrates where he could have, broken free of, well, not free, but of the Chinese rule and
of the exile to return?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
It's actually suggested that he will not return, that he stays in exile.
Ah, right.
Because Saturn is in the 9th house.
Right.
House of long journeys. This suggests someone who grows up in a prison.
Yeah.
And then 12th house Chiron makes a person helpless to get out of the prison. Wow. Both the 9th house malefics and asteroids in the 12th house are prison indicators, and he has both of them.
Shit. Oh, there you go. The horoscope never lies.
The horoscope, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just really uncanny. Yeah.
He also has Mars in Libra. So he
Okay.
struggles with legal matters, with getting fairness in his life.
Fairness.
And it's in, does it have any malefics? Yeah, he has square Pluto. So difficulty with authority figures, outside forces that are working against him, being irritated by these forces, being in conflict with them. And Mars's opposition to Juno.
Mm-hmm.
So this may cause also marriage problems in relationships.
Right.
And it's in the fifth house of romance. In Jupiter, the fifth house means he gets a lot of spouses, like potential mates.
Mm-hmm.
But with Mars, at the same time with his opposition to Juno, it also means it's not going to work out with most of them.
Yeah.
Like, he attracts very masculine figures, even though he's very feminine himself. Because he's too feminine, he doesn't make boundaries with them.
Mm. Yeah. But now, he lives a life of practical, well, not practical, but relative renunciation and celibacy.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's ongoing. He's 87 now. So he'll be won't he be entering another Saturn return?
Yeah,
Yeah.
every 30 years
Yeah, that should be interesting.
and 90, a little bit earlier.
My theory, I could be wrong, but the reason why people tend to die around the late 80s, early 90s is because of the third Saturn return. It's just too much. Like, it's just too much. But if they go on till in their hundreds, it means they passed the test
It makes sense, right?
of
Because
Saturn. Yeah.
people basically die. Why do they die early? So let's
Yeah.
say if 90 was early because it's earlier than 100, right?
Yeah.
Because they're paying for their crimes, like crime and punishment, Saturn. You did these mistakes. I give you 2 chances, not the third one. So bye.
Exactly.
Of course, you could look at it that way. That doesn't mean it is that way, but it's a good part of it. Sure.
And late 50s, early 60s, a lot of people die as well because of that. That's the second Saturn return. And
I guess the thing is with him, I look at Capricorn and Saturn in the chart.
Yeah.
Capricorn being the ruler, and it's in the 7th house.
Yeah.
So if I think about Saturn being about crime and punishment, and Capricorn is looking at the 7th house of relationships,
Yeah.
then if he can sort his relationships out, if he can learn his lessons about those, how to have a healthy relationship with other people, where he's honest, where he's actually himself, if he can do it, then he will not be so punished.
Wow. Interesting. But as I was saying, the whole guru thing, he's not like a guru per se. He's just someone like almost like a spiritual spokesperson who has all these, nice relatable quotes that come out. Yeah, exactly. But, in the sense that he symbolizes, bringing people out of the darkness and into the light of, well, his mission, which is, more happiness and compassion.
Of course.
So, yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
Anything new?
Anything new. But there we go. Not to sound cynical at all, but so yeah, I'm just looking here. Because the Dalai Lama is a true initiate, the hierarchical ruler of Libra, Saturn, placed in the 6th house of service, and discipleship training is likewise significant, apparently.
Oh, you have to be careful where you look, because I was also looking at those pages.
Yeah.
Everyone uses different data.
Is it different data? Okay.
So
That
the
sucks.
data I use
Yeah.
Astro Data Bank.
Okay.
And this Astro
Yeah.
Data Bank, it has the same data for all the previous gurus that we had in our show. And
Right. So that's more
those
accurate
ones,
then.
we checked on a few of them and they are correct. So I would be, for
Mhm.
consistency, I would stick to that, because the problem with people like Dalai Lama is,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
the example with the vultures at the beginning, people around
Yeah.
him are constructing stories about him.
Oh, right.
They're not
Okay.
sticking to the truth a lot of the time. And sometimes, because why do people not stick to the truth? Because they're not invested in the truth. They're invested in stories. So they sometimes they mistakenly, not on purpose, they make the false information.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for what I'm looking at here, esoterica astrologer, it's a bit kind of idolizing him to an extreme degree, which is interesting.
Yeah, we have to always be neutral. Like, you know, in psychotherapy,
Yeah.
psychologist has to be neutral. Like, you know, in The Sopranos, if
Yeah.
Tony's psychologist,
Yeah.
and Tony is complaining to her, "You are supposed to be neutral. Why are you
Yeah. Yeah.
taking my wife's side?"
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And then the psychologist, she goes to another psychologist
Hmm.
and she cries to him, "I wasn't neutral. I don't know what's wrong with me."
Yeah.
That's her conscience being smart to her, telling her, "You're not supposed to do that. You're not
Hmm.
supposed to take sides." In astrology, it's the same thing.
Right.
This is a map
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
psychological placement. So for fuck's
Yeah.
sake, stay neutral.
Yeah. 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 Brilliant. Yeah. And on that note, um, stay neutral, guys, if you can. And
Have your opinion, but be careful if you share it. Be sure it's based on facts, not on any conjecture, not even a little.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, stick to the facts. All right. Well, thanks for this one. That's been great. And
Thank you.
see you next time.
See you. Thanks for watching, audience. Lol.